Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
What up, man? What up, man? What up, man?
Think about it. 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 Think about it.
If you acquire the slave, that slave is going to serve for 6 years, and on the 7th day, be free. That's exactly what we do here. And we're still doing it today. Now, 6 years service, the 7th day.
You know, in a way, you're doing things in the ancient customs of our people.
Because we're Asian people.
Yeah.
We're Asian people.
Yes, yes.
That's a fact to show you that we're more ancient than even the 1948 establishment of the state of Israel.
Yeah, I understand that. That's
And besides, an Igbo man who kills somebody by accident.
Yes.
Yes.
If a man in here like killed by accident, he runs from this particular community to another town, and we never come back to this town until after 7 years because we have no standing high priest. Just like he said, the city of refuge in Israel.
Yeah, I understood.
So we do that.
I have told you that a Igbo man who hanged himself, who died by hanging, is never buried. Like in my own area where I came from, in Ngwaland, also in Abia State.
Yes.
We don't bury them. We go to invite people from Afo. They go to the bush where he hanged himself, dug a pit under that bush, under that tree, and somebody will climb and cut the rope. He will fall into the pit, and they will close the pit and return.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israel, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, all that he said,
I know. We don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? That is the question I have for you.
Thank you. I'll answer that question.
Go ahead. I will help you.
After the demise of Solomon, we now have the northern and southern kingdom of Israel.
Yes.
So when we talk about Jews, Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. The 10 tribes that got lost are not Jews. They were Israelites.
Well, it's depending.
So minority cannot swallow the majority. We are here. We are the majority down here. So you are minority, and we are older than you.
All right, Narabi. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So in other words, why would I want to convert to what you are when what you are is a conversion, a polluted conversion of what I am? You know, y'all see the part where he said, we're the ancient people, we're the ancient Israelites. And then the guy was like, yeah, I understand that. So they know and they understand who we are. Want to give our praise, honor, glory to the Most High, our Heavenly Father, His Son, and to His Holy Spirit. I want to say shalom and blessings to everybody listening in and welcome you to this part 2 of the second Maccabees, the book of second Maccabees. We're going to be picking it up where we left off yesterday. And just to kind of give a rundown, we're dealing with second Maccabees. The first 4 chapters we read, you know, we dealt with a lot of information. We dealt with the beginning of the first chapter where it talked about them reaching out, the brothers and sisters who were in Jerusalem, reaching out and writing letters to the brothers and sisters who were down in Egypt. Because in first Maccabees, we read where a lot of our people left Jerusalem and went to different places. And Egypt was one of those places they went to. And so it started out as somewhat of an epistle in the first chapter. Then it goes into how the books and everything were kept and preserved and how they were put together by people who were diligent and did the work as a means of preserving the letters and passing these things on so that people could be constantly reminded of the Most High and His laws, His statutes and commandments. And so chapter 1 of second Maccabees is a good read for anybody who want to get a good understanding of the books and how those things came about. Then in chapter 2, it sort of recalled some of the works of the prophets, some of the works of Moses, and how Nehemiah himself founded a library and kept some of the writings and everything. Well, really, chapter 2 really goes into detail about the writings. Chapter 1 sort of starts out as an epistle that's written to our brothers and sisters that's down in Egypt. Chapter 2 goes into detail about the writings and how those things were preserved and some of the works of the prophets as well. Chapter 3 basically goes into more of a narrative of what took place, a more detailed account of things that took place during that time. And some of these things are mentioned in first Maccabees, but it mentioned in second Maccabees a high priest by the name of Konal. And Konal was a well-respected man. He was a righteous man during that time. He was high priest very renowned and respected among his people and among other kingdoms that was surrounding. He was high priest during that time. And it goes into detail about how a man named Simon, who was a Benjamite of the tribe of Benjamin, who was a governor, he had an altercation with Konal over some disorder or something that happened within the city. And he tried to rise up against Konal during that time, but he couldn't. So what he did as a result, he went to two other governors, the governor of Aram and the governor of Canaan, and he told them about the treasury that was in Jerusalem. And so once they heard about that, they sent a man by the name of Heliodorus to Jerusalem, basically to go and try to hijack the treasury. And so as he was hijacking the treasury, the high priest and everybody prayed out to the Most High. Said the priests prostrated themselves before the Most High. The people of the city started to cry out to the Most High in sackcloth and everything. And what it did was it sort of summoned the Most High in a way to where when they tried to hijack the treasury, the Most High caused what was called an apparition to come over them. And what an apparition is sort of a vision, so to speak, how the Most High can send you a vision and only you can see the vision, even though it's people around you. So the vision is meant for whoever the Most High wants to see it. And that's what an apparition is. That's what he caused to come on them when they tried to hijack the treasury. So once that apparition came on them, it caused them to humble themselves. And it also said that he caused two men of goodly apparel and of beautiful countenance, and they were strong and everything, to appear on both sides of Heliodorus, and they were sort of chastising them and giving them lashes and everything, and you know, really dealing with him and punishing him for what he did. And so once they saw that, it said that they asked Konal to give a sacrifice on behalf of Heliodorus so that the apparition can go away and the Most High can release him from it. So he did it and everything went away, and he went away praising, or not necessarily praising, but he went away knowing that the Most High is in this place, or the Most High's eyes was on Jerusalem. He was a protector of the place where he chose to put his name. And so Konal, who was high priest, he had a brother named Yeshua who tried to underhand him for the priesthood. And what Yeshua did, he was the one who went and made the agreement to build the places of exercise, where it said he trained up the youth after the way of the heathen. He trained them up in the Greek fashion. And it said that the Most High got angry with them for that and caused a lot of derision to come on them for that. And he also was the one who was against the law of the Most High. And so Yeshua sent sacrifices to Hercules. He sent like 300 pieces of silver to the sacrifice of Hercules. And the people of the city was against him for that, you know, but he did it anyway. And 3 years after that point, Yeshua sent money to the king to try to win the priesthood by a man named Menelaus. Menelaus was Simon's brother. Remember, Simon was the one who was the traitor to the treasury against the high priest Konal. But Menelaus, Simon's brother, was sent by Yeshua to the king with money to try to win the priesthood. And what Menelaus did was he took Yeshua's money and added his money, his own money to it, and won the priesthood for himself. And so what's his name? Yeshua tried to underhand Konah for the priesthood, his brother, and ended up getting undercut by Menelaus, Simon's brother, for the priesthood. And so the king called all the priests to a meeting, and while they were summoned down, Menelaus decided to steal some of the vessels out of the temple. And so once he did that, he shared some of it with a man named Apollonius. And after he did that, Konal, was aware of it, and it said he reproved Menelaus for what he did, and he went to a different place, separated himself from it. And so by that time, Menelaus had won himself a high position. He wanted Konal killed, so he had him set up. And so that's pretty much where we are at chapter 5. That was the end of chapter 4, with the high priest Konal being set up. And in the book of Sirach, chapter 50, it gives a deep breakdown on Konal and who he was and how righteous he was and everything. So if you get a chance, go look at Sirach chapter 50, and we may even bring that out. But we're going to pick it up where we left off in chapter 5. If you haven't, go back and check the first part of the reading of Second Maccabees, part 1, the first 4 chapters. We're in chapter 5. It says, about the same time, Antiochus prepared his second voyage into Egypt. And then it happened that through all the city, for the space almost of 40 days, there were seen horsemen running in the air, in cloth of gold and armed with lances, like a band of soldiers, and troops of horsemen in array, encountering and running one against another with shaking of shields, and multitude of pikes, and drawing of swords, and casting of darts, and glittering of golden ornaments, and harness of all sorts. Wherefore every man prayed to Yahuwah that apparition might turn to good. Now when there was gone forth a false rumor, as though Antiochus had been dead, Yeshua took at the least 1,000 men, and suddenly made an assault upon the city. And they that were upon the walls being put back, and the city at length taken, Menelaus fled into the castle. But Yeshua slew his own citizens without mercy, not considering that to get the day of them of his own nation would be at most unhappy day for him. But thinking they had been his enemies and not his own countrymen, whom he conquered. Howbeit, for all this he obtained not the principality, but at the last received shame for the reward of his treason, and fled again into the country of the Ammonia. In the end, therefore, he had an unhappy return, being accused before Artus, the king of the Arabians, fleeing from city to city, pursued of all men, hated as a forsaker of the law, and being had an abomination as an open enemy of his country and countrymen. He was cast out into Egypt. Thus he that had driven many out of their country perished in a strange land, retiring to the Spartans and thinking there to find secure by reason of his kindred. Menelaus was of Benjamin. It says, and he that had cast out many unburied had none to mourn for him. nor any solemn funerals at all, nor sepulchre with his fathers. Now when this that was done came to the king's car, he thought that Judah had revolted, whereupon removing out of Egypt in a furious mind, he took the city by force of arms, and commanded his men of war not to spare such as they met, and to slay such as went up upon the houses. Thus there was killing of young and old, making away of men, women, and children, slaying of virgins and infants. And there were destroyed within the space of 3 whole days 80,000. It's 80,000. Within the space of 3 whole days 80,000, whereof 40,000 were slain in the conflict, and no fewer sold than slain. Yet was he not content with this, but presumed to go into the most holy temple of all the world. Menelaos, that traitor to the law of Yahuwah, and to his own country, being his guide. So Menelaos helped Ptolemaeus come down and destroy the temple again, rob the temple again, and taking the holy vessels with polluted hands and with profane hands, pulling down the things that were dedicated by other kings to the augmentation and glory and honor of the place, he gave them away. And so haughty was Antiochus in mind that he considered not that Yahuwah was angry for a while for the sins of them that dwelt in the city, and therefore his eye was not upon the place. So because the Most High at that time would turned his back on the city, it says he was haughty in mind, that he considered not that Yahuwah was angry for a while for the sins of them that dwelt in the city, and therefore his eye was not upon the place. For the anger of Yahuwah was on the people, for their sins were like dung. The anger of Yahuwah was on the people, for their sins were like dung. This man, as soon as he had come, the hand of Yahuwah had afflicted him, and put back from the presumption as Heliodorus was, whom Seleucus the king sent to view the treasury. So just like when Heliodorus came to rob the treasury and hijack the treasury, he sent an apparition on him. It's the same thing he did to Antiochus when they went down and tried to dismantle the temple again. But it said that he considered not that Yahuwah was angry for a while for the sins of them that dwelt in the city. He didn't take that into consideration. It says, nevertheless, Yahuwah did not choose the people for the place's sake, but the place for the people's sake. Nevertheless, Yahuwah did not choose the people for the place's sake, but the place for the people's sake. Because he promised to always look on Jerusalem. Said his name would be there. And therefore the place itself that was partaker with them of the adversity that happened to the nation did afterward communicate in the benefits sent from Yahuwah. And as it was forsaken in the wrath of the Almighty, So again, the great Yahuwah being reconciled, it was set up with all glory. So when Antiochus had carried out of the temple 1,800 talents, he departed in all haste unto Antioch, weening in his pride to make the land navigable and the sea passable by foot. Such was the haughtiness of his mind. And he left governors to vex the nation. At Jerusalem, Philippos, for his country a Phrygian, and for manners more barbarous than he that set him there. And at Mount Gerizim, Andronicus, and besides Menelaos, who worse than all the rest, bearing a heavy hand over the citizens, having a malicious mind against the assembly of Yahuwah. And he was a Benjamite. He sent also that detestable ringleader Apolonios with an army of 22,000, commanding him to slay all those that were in their best age, and to sell the women and the younger sort, who coming to Jerusalem and pretending peace, did forbear to the holy day of the Shabbat, when taking the Jews keeping holy day, he commanded his men to arm themselves. And so he slew all them that were gone to the celebrating of the Shabbat, and running through the city with weapons, slew great multitudes. But Judah Maccabee with 9 others, or thereabout, withdrew himself into the wilderness, and lived in the mountains after the manner of beasts, with his company, who fed on herbs continually, lest they should be partakers of the pollution. So this is basically recalling once again what we read in First Maccabees, the events that took place. First Maccabees. It's a little more detail. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the law of their fathers and not to live after the Torah of Yahuwah, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. So a lot of our people desired this. Hold on one second. All right, verse 3. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful. The altar of Yahuwah also was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Shabbat days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Yehudi. And in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the fast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus, carrying ivy. It says, and when the fast of Bacchus was kept, the Yehudim were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy. I think there's a feast or a celebration that's kept every year in honor of this deity. And I think a lot of the people that's in the islands, they keep these celebrations every year. The carnival celebrations and things like that stem back from this. But look at what the record is saying about these things. It says, moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Talmai against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery, for there were 2 women brought who had circumcised their children, whom they had openly led round about the city, the babies handing at their breasts. They cast them down headlong from the wall, and others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Shabbat secretly, being discovered by Philippos, were all burnt together because they made a conscience to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day. Now I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be far from destruction, not to be for destruction. I beseech those that read this book that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for the chastening of our nation. For it is a token of his great goodness when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but forthwith punished. For not as with other nations whom Yahuwah patiently forbear to punish, till they be come to the fullness of their sins, so dealeth he with us. So it's saying not as with other nations whom Yahuwah patiently forbear to punish, till they be come to the fullness of their sins. Sort of what is that? Romans 9, where it talks about him with long suffering forbearing the vessel unto destruction. Because once their sins reach a full, then that's when their judgment gonna come. It says, so dealeth he with us, lest that being come to the height of sin, afterwards he should take vengeance of us. So he used the nations to punish us, so that when he bring judgments on the nations, we won't be a part of that judgment. It says, and therefore Elohim never withdraweth his mercy from us. And though he punish with adversity, yet doth Yahuwah never forsake his people. But let this that we have spoken be for a warning unto us. And now will we come to the declaring of the matter in a few words. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth, and came of his own accord to the torment. As it behooved them to come, that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful for the love of Yahuwah to be tasted, talking about the swine's flesh, as it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful for the love of Yahuwah to be tasted. But they that had the charge of that wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh to his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king, that in doing so he might be delivered from death, and for the old friendship with them find favor. But he began to consider discreetly, and as became his age and his excellency of his ancient years, and the honor of his gray head whereupon was come, and his most honest education from a child, or rather the holy law made and given by Yahuwah. Therefore he answered accordingly, and willed them straightways to send him to the grave. For it becometh not our age, said he, in any wise to dissemble, whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being 80 years old and 10, were now gone to a strange customs. And so they thought, and so they, through mine hypocrisy, and desire to live a little time and a moment longer, should be deceived by me, and I get a stain to mine old age and make it abominable. So he's saying, I'm not going to pretend to take clean meat and eat it as I'm pretending to eat the unclean sacrifice just to stay alive, and the younger generation mistake what I'm doing just to live a little bit longer. For though for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of Yahuwah, neither alive nor dead. Wherefore now, manfully changing this life, I will show myself such an one as mine age requireth, and leave a notable example to such as be young, to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy law. And when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment that they that led him, changing the goodwill, they bear him a little before into hatred, because the foresaid speeches proceeded, as they thought, from a desperate mind. But when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto Yahuwah, that hath the holy knowledge, that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in body by being beaten, but in soul am well content to suffer these things, because I fear him. And thus this man died, leaving his death for an example of a noble courage and a memorial of virtue, for the law of Yahuwah, and not only unto young men, but unto all his nation. We are 7. And it came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips. There's something about that swine's flesh. They know the Most High hate that. And nowadays, it's the one thing most of our people can't get rid of. even down to the intestines. So they were compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips. But one of them that spake first said thus, What wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die rather than to transgress the law of our fathers. Then the king, being in a rage, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot, which forthwith being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first, and to cut off the utmost parts of his body, the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on. And when he was thus maimed in all his members, he commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire and to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying, The cherub of Yahweh looketh upon us, and in truth hath comfort in us, as Moses the servant of Yahweh in his song, which witnessed to their faces, declared, saying, And he shall be comforted in his servants. So when the first was dead after this number, they brought the second to make him a mocking stock. And when they had pulled off the skin of his head with the hair, they asked him, Wilt thou eat, before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body? But he answered in his own language and said, No. Wherefore he also received the next torment in order as the former did. And when he was at the last gasp, he said, Thou like a fury takest us out of this present life. But the King of the world shall raise us up, who have died for this law, unto everlasting life. After him was the third made a mocking stock. And when he was required, he put out his tongue, and that right soon, holding forth his hands manfully, and said courageously, These I had from heaven, and for this law I despised them, and for him I hope to receive them again. Inasmuch that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage, for that he nothing regarded the pains. So he didn't even feel the pain. Now when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner. So when he was ready to die, he said thus, It is good, being put to death by men, to look for hope from Yahweh to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. Afterward, they brought the fifth also and mangled him. Then looked he unto the king and said, Thou hast power over men. Thou art corruptible. Thou dost what thou wilt, yet think not that our nation is forsaken of Yahweh. But abide a while, and behold his great power, how Yahweh will torment thee and thy house. After him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die said, Be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against Yahweh our Elohim. Therefore marvelous things are done unto us. But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against Yahweh, that thou shalt escape unpunished. It says, But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against Yahweh, that thou shalt escape unpunished. We talk about what happened to us during slavery, and the Most High gonna judge that. But what about this? What we reading about? Look what they went through as well. So we talk about chattel slavery here in America as if that's the first time our people ever suffered in that magnitude. And look at what we read in these records. But the mother was marvelous above all and worthy of honorable memory. For when she saw her 7 sons slain within the space of one day, she bare it with a good courage, because the hope that she had in Yahuwah. Yea, she exhorted every one of them in her own language, filled with courageous spirits, and stirring up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach. She said unto them, I cannot tell how ye come into my womb, for I neither gave you breath nor life, neither was it I that formed the members of every one of you. But doubtless, Yahuwah, the creator of the world, who formed the generation of man and found out the beginning of all things, will also of his own mercy give you breath and life again, as ye now regard not your own selves for his law's sake. Now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be a reproachful speech, while the youngest was yet alive, did not only exhort him by words, but also assured him with oaths that he would make him both a rich and happy man if he would turn from the law of his fathers, and that also he would take him for his friend and trust him with the fairs. So after he killed all his older brothers, he the only one left, and now he want to make an oath with him, with the youngest brother. But when the young man would in no case hearken unto him, the king called his mother and exhorted her that she would counsel the young man to save his life. And when he had exhorted her with many words, she promised him that she would counsel her son. But she, bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake in her country language on this manner. Spake in her country language. She said, O my son, have pity upon me, that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee such 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up unto this age, and endured the troubles of education. I beseech thee, my son, look upon the heaven and the earth, and all that is therein, and consider that Elohim made them of things that were not, and so was mankind made likewise. Fear not this tormentor, but being worthy of thy brethren, take thy debt, that Yahuwah Elohim may receive thee again in mercy with thy brethren. While she was yet speaking these words, the young man said, Whom wait ye for? I will not obey the king's commandment, but I will obey the commandment of the Torah of Yahuwah that was given unto our fathers by Moshe. And thou hast been the author of all mischief against the Hebrews, shall not escape the hand of Yahuwah. For we suffer because of our sins. And though the living Yahuwah be angry with us a little while for our chastening and correction, yet shall he be at one again with his servants. And though the living Yahuwah be angry with us a little while for our chastening and correction, yet shall he be at one again with his servants. But thou, O godless man, and of all other most wicked, be not lifted up without a cause, nor puffed up with uncertain hopes, lifting up thy hand against the servants of Yahuwah. For thou hast not yet escaped the judgment of Almighty Elohim, who seeth all things. For our brethren, who now have suffered a short pain, are dead under Elohim's covenant of everlasting life. But thou, through the judgment of Yahuwah, shall receive just punishment for thy pride. But I, as my brethren, offer up my body and life for the law of our fathers, beseeching Yahuwah that he would speedily be merciful unto our nation, and that thou by torments and plagues mayest confess that he alone is Yahuwah. It says, and that in me and my brethren the wrath of Yahuwah, which is justly brought upon our nation, may cease. Then the king, being enraged, handed him worse than all the rest, and took it grievously that he was mocked. So this man died undefiled, and put his whole trust in Elohim. Last of all, after the sons, the mother died. Last of all after the sons, the mother died. Let this be enough now to have spoken concerning the idolatrous feast and the extreme tortures. That was the feast of Bacchus, according to what we just read. All right, so we're at chapter 8. It says, then Yehuda Maccabee and they that were with him went privily into the towns and called their kinsfolks together and took unto them all such as continued in the law of Yahuwah, and assembled about 6,000 men. And they called upon Yahuwah their Elohim, that Yahuwah would look upon the people that was trodden down of all, and also pity the temple profaned of ungodly men, and that he would have compassion upon the city sore defaced, and ready to be made even with the ground, and hear the blood that cried unto him, and remember the wicked slaughter of harmless infants, and the blasphemies committed against his name, and that he would show his hatred against the wicked. And these are all the things that they did once they came together. Those who believed in the Most High and withheld the law, these are all the things that they cried to the Most High for, that he would show his hatred against the wicked. Now, when Maccabee had his company about him, he could not be withstood by the heathen, for the wrath of Yahuwah was turned into mercy. And when Maccabee had his company about him, he could not be withstood by the heathen, for the wrath of Yahuwah was turned into mercy. Therefore he came at unawares and burnt up towns and cities, and got into his hands the most commodious places, and overcame and put to flight no small number of his enemies. Especially took he advantage of the night for such privy attempts, inasmuch that the fruit of his holiness was spread everywhere. So when Philippus saw that this man increased by little and little, and that things prospered with him still more and more, he wrote unto Ptolemaeus, the governor of Aram and Canaan, to yield more aid to the king's affairs. Then forthwith choosing Nicanor, the son of Patroclus, one of his special friends, he sent him with no fewer than 20,000 of all nations under him, to root out the whole generation of the Jews. And with him he joined also Gorgias, a captain, who in matters of war had great experience. Patroclus. That was if you've seen that movie, Troy, what was his name? Achilles. His nephew's name was Patroclus in that movie. So Nicanor undertook to make so much money of the captive Jews as should defray the tribute of 2,000 talents, which the king was to pay to the Romans. Wherefore immediately he sent to the cities upon the seacoast, proclaiming a sale of the captive Jews, and promising that they should have 80 bodies for 1 talent, not expecting the vengeance that was to follow upon him from Yahuwah. Underline this chapter. So this was a sale of our people, proclaiming a sale of the captive Jews and promising that they should have 80 bodies for 1 talent, not expecting the vengeance that was to follow upon them from Yahweh. Now when word was brought unto Judah of Nicanor's coming, he had imparted unto those that were with him that the army was at hand. They that were fearful and distrusted the justice of Elohim fled and conveyed themselves away. Others sold all that they had left, and withal besought Jehovah to deliver them, sold by the wicked Nicanor before they met together. And if not for their own sakes, yet for the covenants he had made with their fathers, and for his holy and glorious name's sake, by which they were called. So Maccabee called his men together unto the number of 6,000, and exhorted them not to be stricken with terror of the enemy, nor to fear the great multitude of the heathen, who came wrongfully against them, but to fight manfully, and to set before their eyes the injury that they had unjustly done to the holy place of Yahweh, and the cruel handling of the city, whereof they made a mockery, and also the taking away of the government of their forefathers. For they, said he, trust in their weapons and boldness. But our confidence is in the name of Yahweh our Elohim, who at Beck can cast down both them that came against us and also all the world. Moreover, he recounted unto them what deliverance Yahweh did to their forefathers, and how they were delivered, when under Sennacherib 180,000 perished. And he told them of the battle that they had in Babel with the Galatians, how they came but 8,000 in all to the business, with 4,000 Macedonians, and that the Macedonians being perplexed, the 8,000 destroyed, and 120,000 because of the help that they had from the hand of Yahweh from heaven, and so received a great booty. Thus, when he had made them bold with these words, and ready to die for the law and the country, he divided his army into 4 parts, and joined with himself his own brethren, leaders of each band, to wit, Simon and Joseph and Jonathan, giving each one 1,500 men. Also he appointed Eleazar to read the law of Yahweh, and when he had given them this watchword, the help of Yahweh, to help of Yahweh, himself leading the first band, and by the help of Yahweh Elohim, they slew above 9,000 of their enemies, and wounded and maimed the most part of Nicanor's hosts, and so put all to flight. And they took their money that came down to buy them, and pursued them far, but lacking time, they returned. for it was the day of the Shabbat, and therefore they would no longer pursue them. So when they had gathered their armor together and spoiled their enemies, they occupied themselves about the Shabbat, yielding exceeding praise and thanks to Yahuwah their Elohim, who had preserved them unto that day, which was the beginning of mercy distilling upon them. And after the Shabbat, when they had given part of the spoils to the maimed and the widows and orphans, the residue they divided among themselves and their servants. When this was done, they had made a common supplication to Yahuwah Elohim. They besought the merciful Yahuwah to be reconciled with his servants forever. Moreover, of those that were with Timotheus and Bacchides, who fought against them, they slew above 20,000, and very easily got high in strongholds, and divided among themselves many spoils more, and made the maimed, orphans, widows, yea, and the aged also equal in spoils with themselves. So once they got all the spoils from these nations, for trying to take advantage of them, they divided it among the people and made the people equal with them. And when they had gathered together armor together, they laid them up all carefully in convenient places, and the remnant of the spoils they brought to Jerusalem. They slew also Philarchus, that wicked person who was with Timotheus, and had annoyed the Yehudim many days. Furthermore, at such time as they kept the feast for the victory of Yahuwah in Jerusalem, they burnt Qualistines that had set fire upon the holy gates, who had fled into a little house, and so he received a reward meet for his wickedness. As for that most ungracious Nicanor, who had brought 1,000 merchants to buy the Jews, he was, through the help of Yahuwah, brought down by them, of whom he made least account. And putting off his glorious apparel and discharging his company, he came like a fugitive servant through the midland unto Antioch, having very great dishonor, for that his host was destroyed. Thus he that took upon him to make good to the Romans their tribute by means of captives in Jerusalem, told abroad that the Yehudim of Elohim to fight for them, and therefore they could not be hurt, because they followed the law that he gave them. It says, thus he that took upon him to make good the Romans their tribute by means of captives of Jerusalem. So that's how he was going to pay his tribute to the Romans. It's through the captives of Jerusalem, told abroad that the Yehudim had Elohim to fight for them, and therefore they could not be hurt, because they followed the law that he gave them. Same thing that Heliodorus, I believe in chapter 3. Same thing happened with him. Is the same thing, is the same way the Most High defended them this time with Nicanor. But this is where we're going to cut it off right here today, chapter 8, the reading of 2nd Maccabees. We're through the first 8 chapters, so I think it's 8 more chapters we got to get through. But once again, go through and get caught up on the readings for those who are following. I appreciate everybody for chiming in and hold on. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate everybody for chiming in and spending your time. Let's see what we got in chat. Sister Pensy Lola. Shalom and blessings to you, Sister Pensy. Lola Yah, good to see you once again. Got the brother Jason Phillip. Shalom and blessings to you, bro. Good to see you in the chat as always. Miss T. Adams, shalom to you. Shalom and blessings. Good to see you. Got Omiya Yakita, Sister Omiya Yakita, shalom and blessings. Good to see you in the chat. Shalom and blessings, my love. Good to see you in the chat. We got Brother Jason Camper. Shalom and blessings, Brother Jason. Good to see you today. We got Mikael Yasharel. Shalom and blessings. Good to see you in the chat once again. Got the Sister Nature Graffiti. Shalom and blessings to you. Good to see you once again. Brother Joe Scott. Shalom and blessings to you, Brother Joe. Good to see you, Brother Joe. We got Brother Jabroni. Shalom and blessings to the Brother Jabroni. Like that's everybody in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and conclude this segment. We're going to come back for part 3. We're going to be picking it up from chapter 9. Chapter 9 is where we're going to pick it up. All right, so go back and review the reading once again to get caught up on the details, those who want to play back. And I will see you, brothers and sisters, on the next one. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to our Heavenly Father, to His Son, and to His Holy Spirit. Shalom and blessings. See y'all on the next one.